The main hall of the Sterling mansion in Malibu erupted in malicious laughter when Marcus Thompson descended the marble staircase wearing a tuxedo that cost more than most of the people present earned in a year. It wasn't laughter of admiration. It was pure, rehearsed cruelty. "Look who decided to show up," Catherine Sterling whispered to her guests, raising her glass of Dom Perignon champagne. "Our dear gardener." Marcus was 32 years old and never imagined that one day he would step into that ballroom as a guest, even if it was a joke. For 3 years he had tended every inch of that 5-acre garden. Always invisible, always silent, watching those rich people treat each other with rehearsed falsehoods while they treated him like furniture. The invitation had arrived 2 days earlier, delivered with a cruel smile he knew all too well. "Charity gala on Saturday," Catherine said, handing him the golden envelope. "Dress code, maximum elegance. You surely have something suitable in your wardrobe, don't you?" Her friend's laughter echoed down the hallway. It was an obvious trap, an attempt to humiliate him publicly, to put him in his place in front of California high society. Catherine had even invited social reporters to document what she called an educational moment. "Let's make a bet," Catherine said to her husband Jonathan as Marcus pruned the roses the day before. $100,000. He doesn't have the guts to show up. And if he does, he'll be the entertainment for the evening. Jonathan laughed maliciously. "You're terrible, Catherine. The poor guy will probably show up in something borrowed and feel so out of place that he'll leave in 15 minutes. But Catherine Sterling didn't know two fundamental things about Marcus Thompson. First, he had grown up in salons like this long before he had to tend gardens to survive. Second, some storms don't destroy you. They just teach you to dance in the rain. As he walked through the hall under the mocking glances, Marcus kept his posture straight and his gaze serene, like someone carrying secrets capable of turning that world upside down. His steps were sure, calculated, as if each movement were part of a long-rehearsed choreography. "My God, he really came," whispered Diana Westfield, wife of a senator, to her friend. "And look at how he's dressed. Where did he get that tuxedo?" "He probably rented it and will pay for it in 10 installments, replied Amanda Cross, daughter of an oil magnate, trying to disguise her own insecurity with cruelty. How pathetic. What none of those people knew was that Marcus hadn't bought, borrowed, or rented that tuxedo. He had simply gone back to his own past to get it. A past that Catherine would have done anything to erase if she had known it existed. Catherine approached him, her chest puffed out with arrogance, surrounded by her billionaire friends. Her confidence was sky high. After all, she had orchestrated this as a public display of power and social control. "Marcus, what a pleasant surprise. I never doubted you would come. After all, when a person like you receives an invitation to an event like this, a person like me." Marcus repeated, his calm voice cutting through the air like sharp silk. "Go on, Catherine. Finish your sentence." For a microscopic moment, something in his tone made Catherine hesitate. There was a firmness there that didn't match the submissive man she knew from the mansion's gardens. But arrogance quickly took over again. "Well, you know, someone who doesn't normally frequent this kind of environment. You must be feeling quite intimidated by all this elegance." Marcus smiled. Not a submissive or nervous smile, but something dangerously serene that made some nearby guests stop laughing instinctively. "Intimidated?" he repeated softly, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made Catherine take a step back without realizing it. "No, Catherine. I'm feeling exactly where I've always belonged." The silence that followed lasted only a few seconds, but it was enough for the atmosphere of the party to change completely. There was something about the way Marcus spoke, the way he moved, the way he occupied the space, that defied all the expectations those people had about who he should be. If you're enjoying this story of twists, turns, and justice, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what those privileged people didn't know was that Marcus carried with him a secret so explosive that it would turn that night of planned humiliation into the greatest lesson on prejudice and underestimating people that Malibu had ever witnessed. Catherine was having more fun than she had imagined. Marcus hadn't run away in embarrassment as she had expected. He remained there, with that strangely confident posture that was beginning to bother her in an inexplicable way. "Everyone," Catherine announced loudly, tapping a silver spoon against her crystal glass to get the attention of all the guests. "I would like to introduce our special guest tonight. Marcus, our dedicated gardener." Laughter echoed through the hall like cruel waves. Cell phone flashes began to go off as socialites took photos to post on their social media accounts with sarcastic captions. "Catherine," Jonathan murmured beside her, feigning concern. "Don't you think you're being a little cruel?" "Cruel?" Catherine laughed loudly. "I'm giving him the opportunity of a lifetime. When else would someone like him get the chance to attend an event like this?" Marcus stood motionless in the center of the room, all eyes fixed on him. But instead of the embarrassment they expected to see, there was something disconcerting about his expression, a serenity that seemed to come from someone who had weathered far worse storms. Diana Westfield approached with her group of friends, all wearing venomous smiles. "Marcus, dear, tell me, how long did it take you to choose that tuxedo? It must have been so challenging to find something suitable." "Actually," Marcus replied with a calmness that made Diana hesitate, "this tuxedo has a very special history. It belonged to my father." "Your father?" Amanda Cross laughed nasally. "And where did your father get a tuxedo like that?" "At some fancy thrift store," Marcus smiled. But there was something dangerous about that smile. "My father last wore this tuxedo when he was still Marcus Thompson Sterling. That was 25 years ago, when he still frequented salons like this." The silence that followed was deafening. Some people stopped talking, realizing that something important was being said. Catherine, who had been laughing with her close friends, turned slowly. "What did you say?" "Thompson Sterling," Marcus repeated, his voice cutting through the air like a sharp blade. "It's funny how some people choose to conveniently forget their own family history." Catherine's face began to pale. Jonathan instinctively grabbed his wife's arm, sensing that something was terribly wrong. "You're delusional," Catherine said. But her voice came out less firm than she intended. "I don't know what game you're playing, but this isn't a game, Catherine." Marcus took a step toward her, and several guests instinctively backed away. "It's history. Our history. The history you tried to erase when you decided it was more convenient to pretend that certain people in our family never existed." Cell phone cameras continued to record, but now for a completely different reason. Whispers began to spread through the room like wildfire. Jonathan pulled Catherine by the arm. "What is she talking about?" "He's lying," Catherine replied, but her hands were shaking slightly. "He's an unstable employee trying to get attention." Marcus reached into his inside jacket pocket and pulled out an object that made several guests gasp. It was a ring, not just any ring, but the traditional Sterling family engagement ring, engraved with the family crest and featuring the distinctive blue sapphire that had been passed down for generations. "This ring," Marcus said, holding it up for all to see, "was given to my mother by her father, William Sterling. My grandfather, the man you told your children died without an heir." Catherine was visibly shaken. "Where did you get this? How dare you steal?" Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Catherine, you can't steal something that is rightfully yours by birthright." Diana Westfield, who had been watching with her mouth agape, whispered to her friend, "My God, do you think he's telling the truth?" "Impossible," Amanda murmured, but her voice no longer sounded so confident. "Catherine would have told us if she had a cousin." Marcus heard the whisper and turned to them. "Cousin?" "No, dear. I'm not Catherine's cousin." He paused dramatically, looking directly at Catherine. "I'm her half-brother." The room exploded in murmurs and muffled exclamations. Catherine looked as if she had been struck by lightning. "That's ridiculous," she cried, but her voice failed her. "My father would never. You're making this up." "William Sterling had an affair with my mother Isabella, for 5 years," Marcus continued relentlessly. "She was the family piano teacher. When she found out she was pregnant with me, your father promised to take care of us, and he kept his promise until the day he died." Jonathan now had one hand over his mouth, looking between Marcus and Catherine as if watching a car crash in slow motion. "You," Marcus said, pointing directly at Catherine, "decided it would be easier to pretend we never existed. You cut off our allowance, sold the house your father bought for my mother, and left us in absolute poverty." "I had no obligation to," Catherine began. But Marcus interrupted her. "You had no obligation to take care of your father's family? Interesting philosophy, considering you inherited 100% of a fortune that should have been divided between us." The weight of Marcus' words was slowly sinking into the minds of the guests. Several began to move away from Catherine, as if physical proximity could contaminate them with scandal. "Prove it," Catherine said desperately. Anyone can make up a story and get a ring. Marcus smiled again, and this time there was something predatory in that expression. Oh, Catherine, do you really think I came here without proof? He took out his phone and signaled to someone near the entrance. They can come in now. Each new humiliation of Catherine only fueled something inside Marcus that she couldn't understand. A silent force that grew in direct proportion to the injustice she tried to impose. What those privileged people didn't know was that every act of contempt was writing their own sentence. And Marcus had spent 25 years learning exactly how to collect every penny of a debt that transcended money. 3 people entered the room at that moment that would change the lives of everyone present forever. The first was Sarah Mitchell, Los Angeles's most respected investigative journalist. The second was Robert Chun, a lawyer specializing in inheritance law. The third made Catherine Sterling stagger as if she had been punched in the stomach. Dr. Harrison, Jonathan muttered, recognizing the family's private physician. What are you doing here? Dr. Harrison, who had treated William Sterling during the last years of his life, walked to the center of the room. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. 25 years ago, I was forced to sign a falsified death certificate. William Sterling did not die of natural causes. He was slowly poisoned with arsenic over a period of months. The room erupted in muffled screams. Sarah Mitchell raised her hand. Please keep your phones away. This is an official confession being recorded for legal purposes. Catherine was visibly distraught, sweating. You're out of your mind, Harrison. My father died of heart problems. Your father found out about the money you'd been embezzling from the company for years, Dr. Harrison continued relentlessly. He had changed his will to include Marcus and was about to report you to the police when he began showing strange symptoms. Marcus remained silent, tears of relief in his eyes. Finally, after 25 years, someone was telling the truth. Robert Chun opened his briefcase and took out an official document. This blood sample was tested last week by an independent laboratory. The arsenic levels were fatal. You're making this up. Catherine screamed, but her voice was completely uncontrolled. It's a conspiracy to ruin me. Sarah Mitchell stepped forward. Ms. Sterling, I have transcripts of 5 conversations you had with Dr. Harrison between 2000 and 2001, where you threatened to ruin him professionally. Marcus finally spoke, his voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. Catherine, you didn't just kill our father. You stole 25 years of my life. I didn't kill anyone. Catherine pointed her finger in all directions. You're all lying. Then explain this, Marcus said, connecting his phone to the mansion's sound system. A recording began to play. Catherine's voice was unmistakable. Harrison, you're going to keep your mouth shut about anything strange you found in the old man's blood. If you open your mouth, I guarantee you'll never work as a doctor again. And as for that woman and her bastard daughter, they can fend for themselves. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the people who had defended Catherine now avoided her as if she were radioactive. Jonathan stared at his wife in horror. Catherine, did you really do this? 25 years. Marcus shouted, his composure breaking momentarily. 25 years tending the garden where my own father was buried. Marcus took a deep breath and regained his deadly calm. Want to know how I got all this evidence? I didn't come to work here by accident. I applied specifically for this position. I spent 3 years preparing, gaining access to the house, collecting evidence. Catherine tried one last desperate gambit. Even if all that is true, it doesn't change anything. The inheritance was distributed years ago. Robert Chun smiled for the first time. Actually, Mrs. Sterling, when there is evidence of murder, all assets can be redistributed according to the original will. And we have a copy of William Sterling's real will. Marcus approached Catherine, who was leaning against the wall like a cornered animal. Do you know what my biggest mistake was, Catherine? It was believing that you would change on your own. Please, Catherine whispered. All her arrogance evaporated. Jonathan, the children. This will destroy our family. You destroyed our family the moment you chose money over justice, Marcus replied with haunting calm. Catherine collapsed into an armchair, completely defeated. Her transformation from arrogant millionaire to exposed criminal had taken less than 2 hours. Marcus looked at Catherine one last time. She was broken. But that was only the beginning. What Catherine didn't realize, and would discover in the worst possible way in the next few hours, was that Marcus had spent years gathering evidence not only about her father's death, but about all the financial crimes, blackmail, and corruption she had committed over the decades, weaving a web of justice so meticulous that her downfall would be spectacularly complete. The next 2 hours turned Malibu's most exclusive gala into the biggest scandal California high society had ever witnessed live. Catherine was now sitting on the floor of the hall, her back against the wall, watching her entire life unravel in real time. Sarah Mitchell had connected her laptop to the mansion's projection system, and documents, photos, and recordings appeared on the giant screen for all the guests to see. This is a bank transfer of $200,000 from Catherine Sterling's personal account to Dr. Harrison, dated 3 days after William Sterling's death, Sarah narrated as the image appeared on the screen. The transfer memo says, "Silence is golden." Jonathan was now on the other side of the room, as far away from his wife as possible, crying silently as he processed 25 years of lies. And this, Sarah continued, is a recording of Catherine talking to her accountant about how to hide the embezzlement from the company. Catherine's voice echoed through the room. "I need you to make the numbers dance. If anyone finds out that I've taken $20 million over the last 5 years, I'm ruined. Blame market fluctuations, expansion costs, anything." Diana Westfield whispered to her friend, "My God, she stole from her own company." Marcus remained in the center of the room, calm as the eye of a hurricane, watching each revelation systematically destroy the life of the woman who had murdered his father. Robert Chun approached with a new folder. "Ms. Sterling, in addition to the criminal charges, I must inform you that Mr. Thompson is filing a $50 million civil suit against you for wrongful death and misappropriation of inheritance." $50 million. Catherine looked up, her eyes glazed over. "I don't have $50 million. "No," Marcus said softly. "But your company is worth $120 million, and half of it has always been mine by right." Sarah Mitchell continued the devastating presentation. "We also have evidence that Catherine blackmailed at least 5 local politicians, bribed 3 judges, and diverted charity funds to personal accounts." Each new revelation drew gasps of horror from the guests. People who had arrived as Catherine's friends now moved away as if she were radioactive. "Marcus," Catherine said in a broken voice, "please, you got what you wanted. Stop this." Marcus took a step forward and knelt in front of her, looking directly into her eyes. "Catherine, you killed our father. You stole my family, my inheritance, my dignity. You made me tend the garden where he's buried for 3 years. I can make it up to you," she whispered desperately. "There's no making up for 25 years of injustice," Marcus replied with haunting calm. "But there are consequences." Jonathan's phone rang. It was one of his children calling from college. "Dad, is everything okay? They're saying on the internet that Mom is a murderer." Jonathan looked at Catherine with utter disgust. "Your own children are finding out what kind of monster you are through social media." Catherine tried to stand up, but her legs gave way. "Jonathan, please, the children." "No," Jonathan shouted, silencing the entire room. "You don't mention our children. You've shamed them forever." Dr. Harrison approached Marcus. "Mr. Thompson, I must inform you that I have already contacted the police. Catherine will be arrested today for murder." Marcus asked, "Murder, fraud, blackmail, tax evasion. She'll spend the rest of her life in prison." Marcus turned to the guests who were watching him with a mixture of admiration and terror. "I want everyone to understand one thing. I didn't do this for revenge. I did this for justice, for all the people who have been trampled on by women like Catherine Sterling." Diana Westfield approached hesitantly. "Marcus, we're so sorry. We didn't know." "You knew I was treated like a subhuman," Marcus replied firmly. "You laughed. You participated. The only difference is that now you know I have more money than you." The sound of sirens began to echo from outside. The police had arrived. Catherine looked at Marcus one last time. "You destroyed my life." "No," Marcus said, standing up with all his dignity. "You destroyed your own life the moment you chose evil. I just made sure the truth came out." As the police entered to arrest Catherine, Marcus stepped out onto the balcony. Outside, dozens of reporters were waiting. TV cameras, photographers, journalists. The story had already spread. Jonathan approached him on the balcony. "Marcus, I really didn't know anything." "I know," Marcus said gently. "You were also a victim of hers. What's going to happen now?" Marcus looked down at the city sparkling below. "Now, Jonathan, justice will finally be served. And maybe Malibu will learn that class has nothing to do with bank accounts." As Catherine was led away in handcuffs by the police, passing through the same hall where she had tried to humiliate him hours earlier, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in 25 years: peace. 6 months later, Marcus Thompson Sterling sat in Catherine's former office, now completely renovated. The walls that once displayed trophies of arrogance now displayed certificates from social projects and photos of employees promoted from entry-level positions to executive positions. Catherine had been sentenced to life in prison, without the possibility of parole. The charges included murder, corporate fraud, blackmail, and tax evasion. Her personal fortune was completely confiscated to cover compensation to the victims. Marcus was just one of the many people she had harmed over the years. "Mr. Thompson Sterling," said Amanda, his new executive assistant who had previously worked as a cleaning lady in the building, "Forbes magazine is here for the interview about the company's transformation." Marcus smiled. In 6 months, he had increased the company's profits by 40% simply by treating employees like human beings. Fair wages, promotions based on actual merit, and a respectful work environment had created a level of productivity that Catherine had never achieved with her toxic leadership. Jonathan had divorced her immediately and moved to another state with their children. Before leaving, he sought out Marcus to apologize in person. "You could have destroyed us completely, but you chose to protect my children. I will never forget your generosity." "Children don't pay for their parents' sins," Marcus had replied. "They deserve the chance to be better people than she was." Dr. Harrison now worked as a medical consultant for the company, offering free care to all employees. "I never thought I'd have the courage to do the right thing," he told Marcus during a meeting. "You taught me that it's never too late to find our dignity." Diana Westfield and Amanda Cross had tried to contact Marcus in the weeks following the scandal, but he kept them at a polite distance. "You laughed at me when you saw me as inferior. Now you want my friendship because you found out about my bank account. That says everything about you." Marcus's story had gone viral worldwide. He received invitations to speak at universities about leadership and social justice, but he preferred to focus on the real work. "I don't want to be famous for suffering," he explained in a rare interview. "I want to be known for what I built." Afterwards, the company now sponsored scholarships for employees' children, a microcredit program for entrepreneurs in underserved communities, and had created the largest domestic violence support fund in California. On a quiet afternoon, Marcus received a letter from prison. It was from Catherine. "Marcus, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need you to know that you taught me that the person I became was a monster. I spend every day trying to understand how I became someone capable of killing my own father for money. My children asked about you during their last visit. They want to meet the uncle who protected the family when their father failed." Marcus kept the letter without responding. Forgiveness was a personal journey, but justice had already been served. During the interview with Forbes, the journalist asked, "Some people say your revenge was too cruel. What do you say to that?" "Revenge would be to do to her what she did to me," Marcus replied calmly. "Justice is ensuring that she pays for the crimes she committed and that other people don't suffer what I suffered. There's a fundamental difference between the two." "And what advice would you give to people facing similar injustices?" Marcus looked out the window, watching employees having lunch in the garden of the company that now offered them respect and dignity. "The best revenge is not to destroy those who hurt you. It is to build something so great that the injustice you suffered becomes just the first chapter in a story of triumph." That night, Marcus returned home, no longer to the small apartment where he had nurtured his dreams of justice, but to a comfortable house where he had adopted 2 orphan brothers who, like him, needed a second chance at life. As he helped the boys with their homework, he thought of the father he never really knew, but whose blood ran through his veins. William Sterling would have been proud to see that his son had not only regained what was stolen from him, but had turned a company built on exploitation into a symbol of opportunity and dignity. Marcus's real victory was not dethroning Catherine. It was proving that when you build power based on justice rather than fear, that power multiplies and benefits everyone around you. Catherine tried to humiliate a gardener and ended up discovering that she had underestimated an heir. More importantly, She discovered that dignity cannot be bought, inherited, or stolen. It is earned through the choices we make when no one is looking. If this story of justice touched your heart, subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that good always wins when you have the right strategy, and that sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one everyone has chosen to ignore.